So hi, my name is Mahesh. Basically, I'm working as a senior software engineer on Java and Android related technologies. So in the last video, I explained what is mean by Android XML layout file, what Android XML layout file consists. And here, now in this session, for every single screen in Android, we need two files, one Java file and one XML file. One Java file and one XML file. XML file is called as layout, Java file is called as activity. XML file is called as layout, Java file is called as activity. So in the previous video, I explained the XML part. What is XML? Okay, how to create the XML file in Android and all the things. So in this session, I'll explain you the Java part. So Java file is called as activity. Java file is called as activity. So what is the first step to create an activity? Java file is called as activity. There are some steps to create an activity. The first step to create an activity is create a class. Let us take my class name is main activity or my activity. My class name is main activity. The first rule to create an activity is create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. So what is the first step to create an activity class? Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. This is the first step to create a class. This is the first step to create an activity. Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity class. My question is, why we need to extend this activity class? What is the need of extending android.app.activity class? Okay, to understand this question, why you need to create a class with subtype of android.app.activity class. To understand this question, first of all, you need to understand what is the life cycle of an activity. What is the life cycle of an activity? What is the life cycle of an activity? So next we'll discuss what is the life cycle of an activity. Activity is having four states. The four states of an activity is activity does not exist state, activity is in foreground state, activity is in foreground state, and activity is in a background state, and activity is in pause state. These are the four states of an activity. Activity does not exist state, activity is in foreground state, activity is in background state, and activity is in pause states. So these are the four states of an activity. Next, activity is having 7 major methods. The 7 major methods of activity is: one is on create, another one is on start, on resume, on pass, on stop, on restart, and on destroy. These are the 7 major methods of an activity. The 4 states of an activity is activity does not exist state, activity is in foreground state, activity is in background state, pause state, and these are the 7 major methods in the activity class. One is on create, on start, on resume, on pass, on stop, on restart, and on destroy. These are the 7 major methods in the activity class and which will participate in the activity lifecycle. Okay, I'll explain you this activity lifecycle with the help of one example. So in my device, let us take in my device. So 1 minute. In my device there are some applications are there. So one of this application is, let us take QR code reader. QR code reader, or let us take, so this is application. So this is one of the application in my device. The application name is, let us take MPHD. Now the application is having some activities. So the first state of an activity is, now the state of an activity is activity does not exist state, meaning the activity is not started now. The first state of an activity is activity does not exist state. The first state of an activity is activity does not exist state. Let us take, this is application. So once if you click the application, you will get one activity into the foreground. You will get one activity into the foreground. One activity is going to be starts. An activity enters into the foreground state. An activity comes from does not exist state to foreground state. An activity comes from does not exist state to foreground state. Previously it is does not exist state. Now the activity is does not exist state. So once if you start the application, you will get an activity. Now the activity is in which state? Activity is in a foreground state. An activity comes from does not exist state to foreground state by calling three methods. The three methods are, one is on create, on start and on resume. These are the three major methods which will invoke to start an activity. An activity comes from does not exist state to exist state. Now, so the application is in activity is in does not exist state. Once if you click the application, you will get one activity. An activity comes from does not exist state to foreground state by calling on create, on start and on resume. Now the activity is in foreground state. So let us take, click on this login button. Click on this login button. So once if you click the login button, some other activity enters into the foreground. Some other activity enters into the foreground. Already previously this is the background activity. This is the activity. So once if you click the login button, some other activity enters into the foreground. Some other activity enters into the foreground. Already the current visible activity is going to enter into a background state. If some other activity enters into the foreground, already the current visible activity is going to enter into a background state. I'll explain you once again. Now this is application. Activity is in doesn't exist state. So once if you start the activity, an activity comes into the foreground. An activity comes into the foreground by calling on create, on start and on resume methods. If some other activity enters into the foreground, once if you click login button, some other activity enters into the foreground. When some other activity enters into the foreground, already the current visible screen is going to enter into background state by calling two methods. One is on pause method, another one is on stop method. When some other activity enters into the foreground, already the current visible activity is going to enter into background state by calling on pause and on stop methods. So this is a foreground activity. Let us take. Unfortunately, you press the power button. Let us take, or you got an incoming call. So this activity is not going to be destroyed. So previously, this is a current visible activity. Unfortunately, you got an incoming call, or you press on power button. Already the current visible activity is going to enter. It is not going to be destroyed. It is going to enter into which state? It is going to enter into pause state. So it is going to enter into pause state by calling one method called on pause method. The current visible activity, this is the current visible activity. Unfortunately, once if you press power button or if you get any incoming call, this activity will not be destroyed. This activity is going to be entered into which state? pause state. It is going to enter into pause state by calling on pause method. Once again, if you click the power button, once again you will get the power. If you click the power button, you will get the same activity. So an activity comes from, previously it is in pause state. An activity comes from pause state to foreground state by calling a method called on resume method. Okay, the current visible activity, if you get any incoming call or power button, unfortunately, so it is going to enter into pause state. It is not going to be destroyed. It is going to enter into a pause state. So once again, an activity enters from pause state to active state by calling a method called on resume method. Okay, and one more thing, remember one more thing, all the screens are going to maintain in a stack. All the screens are going to maintain in a stack. Let us take here, click on login button. If you click login button, you will get some other activity. Some other activity enters into the foreground, meaning the current visible activity is going to enter into background. Right now, this is a visible screen. This is a current visible screen. So once if you click back button, so the current visible activity is going to be destroyed. The background activity is going to enter into foreground state. Just click a back button. Already the current visible activity is going to be destroyed. The background activity is going to enter into a foreground state. This is the current foreground activity, right? This is a current foreground activity. Once if you click back button here, this activity is going to be destroyed. This activity is going to be destroyed by calling on pause method, next on stop method, another one is on destroy method. The current visible activity is going to be destroyed by calling on pause, on stop and on destroy method. This is the current visible activity. So once if you click back button, this activity is going to be destroyed. The background activity is going to enter into foreground state. A background activity is going to be entered into foreground state by calling on restart, on start and on resume methods. So this is the life cycle of an activity. This is the life cycle of an activity. Who will manage all these things? Who will manage all these things? A current visible activity, some other activity enters into the screen, enter this activity into background screen. So who will manage all these things? You don't need to manage all these things. So just create one class with a subtype of, create one class, this is our class, let us take, create one class with subtype of android.app.activity. You will get all these properties into your class. You will get all these properties into your class. So that's why the first step to create an activity is create a class with subtype of android.app.activity class. You will get this complete lifecycle management into your activity screen. So that is the first step. Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. That is the first step. Next. So which method is going to be called first? In case of C language or Java, which method is going to be called first? A main method is going to be called first. Execution is going to start with main. But in case of Android, here on create method is going to be starts first. The execution starts with on create. So provide the implementation for on create method. This is the second step. The first step is create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. The second step is provide the implementation for on create method. Why only on create method? Because the execution starts with on create. Next, we design the user interface. We design the user interface in one XML file. How to set the XML file? By using set content view method. By using set content view method, we can set the XML file to Java file. Let us take my XML file name is main. Let us call r.layout.main. By using this set content view method, we can set the XML file to to the Java file. Okay, I'll give the steps. What are the steps to create an activity? So next one is, what is in by activity? Let us take, what is in by activity? Activity is single screen in the application with some UI components. It is a Java file. So next, steps to create an activity. The first step to create an activity is create a class with subtype of android.app activity class. This is the first step to create a activity. Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. We'll create this one. So open the Java code in our application. What is our project name? Hello Durga is the project name. Open the Java file. The Java file which is located in the package main activity.java. So leave about, remove all the things. So create one class. Let us take public class. My class name is main activity. What is the class name? Main activity. So this class should be subtype of which class? Activity class, android.app.activity class. So this is the first step to create an activity. Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity. So next step, second step is, so same like main method in C and Java, in Android, onCreate method is going to be called first. onCreate method is going to be called first. onCreate method is going to be called first. So we need to provide the implementation for onCreate method. So go to our class, provide the implementation for onCreate method. So just give the control space, you will get the total number of list of methods. We need to provide the implementation for onCreate. Provide the implementation for onCreate method, and we design the user interface. In one XML file. How to set that XML file? By using set content view method, we can set the XML file. Our XML file is located in the layout folder. What is the file name? Activity_main. Set content view, let us take r.layout.activity_main. So these are the three steps. Okay. So what are the steps? Create a class with subtype of android.app.activity, same like onCreate method. So in Android, onCreate method is going to be called first. So provide the implementation for onCreate method. So provide the implementation for onCreate method. And next, by using set content view method, specify the XML file r.layout.xml file name. Set content view method, specify the file name. Method is used to set the XML file to the Java file. We design the user interface in XML file. How to set that XML file to the Java file? By using a method called set content view. Specify the XML file name r.layout.activity_main. So these are all the steps how to create an activity. Okay. So thank you.